Bernie Sanders and AOC had a complete meltdown on live TV last night. They were having this town hall on CNN, and they attempted to pull a President Trump. You know how President Trump calls out the press? He calls out specific journalists, oh, you're fake news, or oh, you're biased, you're always out to get me. Well, Bernie and AOC attempted to have one of those moments. It was very clear they were trying to imitate President Trump, but it quickly turned into a train wreck, and they actually drew attention to the very topic that they were trying to avoid.
Are you saying that Senator Schumer should not be worried about a primary challenge from you?
I mean,
all right.
No.
Let me jump in on this one.
This is what we're talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about.
You have a country that is falling apart. We had a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, massive income and wealth inequality, a corrupt campaign finance system, and the media says, oh, you're going to run. What are you going to run for? Nobody cares. She'll run what she wants.
Nobody cares. It's the House Speaker and President Trump and the Vice President saying it.
Right.
Pardon?
Well, of course, they're saying it to deflect attention away from the real issue.
Exactly.
And here, let me tell you what the real issue is. Let's see if CNN talks about it. We're living in the richest country in the history of the world, right? All right, you tell me why we're the only nation not to guarantee health care to all people, the only nation not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, why we have a $7.25 an hour minimum wage, why we have 800,000 people sleeping out on the street, why we have a president who denies the reality of climate change, why we have oligarchs on top who have more and more power every day. Let's talk about that issue, not her own political future. She'll decide that.
Well, Bernie, maybe the reason they were asking about AOC's future is not only is it a newsworthy topic, but you've been ranting about the failure of leadership in this country, not just on the Republican side, but on the Democrat side. You've been criticizing your own leaders. So yes, this entire town hall, you've been talking about specific issues, but if you've been criticizing leaders, then isn't it fair game to wonder, hey, there's been rumor that AOC might run for higher office, whether that's Senate Majority Leader, taking Chuck Schumer's spot, or even running for president. That is fair game when you were criticizing the current leadership in both parties for this situation. So for both of them to act as if this question came out of nowhere and has no relevance to the discussion at hand, well, it just is a cheap shot attempt to play President Trump, and they right there just were the Temu version of it. Well, if anything, it actually exposes your own cheap shot attempt to imitate President Trump, and it actually calls attention to the very issue that you were trying to avoid. So great job, Bernie and AOC, great job. One of my favorite moments in the town hall was when Bernie was actually called out and put on the spot by one of the voters that was present and asked this question.
How do you think this shutdown reflects on Chuck Schumer's leadership?
Well, I think it reflects more on Mike Johnson's leadership and President Trump's leadership. This is a leadership which said it's okay to give well, how do you feel? You tell me. Think it's a good idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the richest people in the country and then make massive cuts to health care for working class people?
I think Chuck Schumer has voted for continuing resolutions 13 times in the last 4 years, and he has the opportunity to vote for one again, but he's refusing to come to the table.
I think, look.
Ooh, Bernie Sanders called out right there. That is 100% true. And the issue with this continuing resolution is it's the exact same budget that's been in the past before. Now, look, Democrats, obviously, Chuck Schumer has voted for similar budgets in the past. No issues there at all. What the Democrats are complaining about here specifically is healthcare and the Obamacare subsidies. But the thing is, the Republicans have actually extended these subsidies for at least one other year. It is a continuing resolution, and this budget would be good for another 365 days. What the Democrats want is they want Obamacare essentially to be the gateway drug into socialist medicine. They want universal health care like they have in other nations. And, that became a topic of discussion in this town hall. That was a point that they came back to again and again and again. Well, so to lead towards that, basically, the Democrats, they're not okay with this continuing resolution, despite the fact that they voted for similar or identical ones in the past. And this time they say, no, we don't want Obamacare subsidies just for another year. We want this to go on forever. They're playing games when it's a stressful time for all of us. Not only is the shutdown hurting government employees and programs that depend on this funding, but, right now it's open enrollment season if you're on Medicare. If you rely on the marketplace like I do, if, you're freelance, then it's it's going to be our turn soon. And, there was just this new report that Medicare premiums are set to increase next year and benefits are set to decrease. And look, if you're on Medicare, I get you are bombarded right now with a bunch of spam calls and emails about the latest plan. And it's easy and tempting to ignore all of that. But the worst case situation is you find out next year that your plan no longer covers your doctor, or it no longer covers the prescription that you need to be on. Well, just because our politicians in DC are doing nothing, it doesn't mean that you have to do nothing. You can actually take action, and that's why I partner with Chapter. Now, it just takes less than 20 minutes, and they will compare all the plans for you. In fact, many members say that they get plans after calling a Chapter that they couldn't even find on the official Medicare.gov website. There's no pressure, just honest, free, ethical help. And hey, guess what? If you're already on the best plan, they'll just tell you that, and you have peace of mind. So there's nothing to lose. In less than 20 minutes, you can have peace of mind for the rest of the fall and the rest of the year. So call 321-358-2297 or check out the link that I am pinning as the top comment below and posting in the description of today's video. So yeah, I just absolutely love that guy asked his question, and he also really followed up with the facts and called Bernie out, and you could tell, his face, he just wasn't having it, and you could tell Bernie Sanders was sort of taken aback, caught off guard. Well, it would have been enough for Bernie had that been the moment, but Caitlin Collins actually followed up with a good substantive question. Again, credit where credit is due here.
Senator Sanders, on that front, on government shutdowns before, obviously you've said before that you believe shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action. You said that we must do everything possible to prevent it. What would you say to people who are missing their paychecks about why it's worth it now?
Well, let me just, first of all, thank you very much for your service. And we're going to do everything we can and move as quickly as we can to make sure you get your paychecks.
Yeah, he really had no good defense, and it really turned into, well, we just have to stop Trump. So early on, Bernie, the very first question, the very first clip that I showed you where him and AOC had that meltdown, it's like, why are you talking about whether or not AOC is going to run for office? Well, it's because you've been criticizing the leadership. And, Bernie claims, I want to focus in on the issues and I want to debate the issues. Well, now he has a chance to actually debate the issues, and he pivots and makes it all about defeating President Trump. This was the moment where, as if it wasn't crystal clear before, that it really became obvious and in your face. Oh, you don't care about what's actually best for all of us. You just want to score political points.
My American dream has turned into a nightmare. My family was only days away from closing on a USDA loan for our dream home. Then came news of the shutdown, and now we face uncertainty. Our lease is up, and now we have to move. The shutdown is costing us our chance to live our dream. What are you doing to end this stalemate and help restore faith in our elected officials, the people I helped to choose to guard my American dream?
We're going to do everything that we can to bring an end to this terrible shutdown, which is hurting you and which is hurting 1 million federal employees and millions of people who use federal services. But also, we have got to be cognizant that if Trump wins this fight, our healthcare system could well collapse.
If Trump wins this fight, you guys are the ones who started this fight. Again, Chuck Schumer has voted for various CRs in the past, many of them pretty much identical to this one. And all of a sudden, the Democrats didn't want to vote for it because they wanted Obamacare subsidies to go on in perpetuity. Oh, we want this to last forever. They could have negotiated all summer, but instead they waited to the last minute. Now they're playing political games with it. And the longer this shutdown is drawn out, the more things Democrats start adding to their wish list. So I wouldn't be surprised if, it turns out to be some convoluted thing. And it's hard to see at this point which side is going to give first. But thanks to social media and thanks to alternative media, people are able to see through the Democrat shenanigans. They're able to see the Democrats' own hypocrisy and see the games that they're playing with politics. Well, that brings up the next question about why the Republicans have all of a sudden been able to, really dominate social media. In the past, Democrats had the better handle on pop culture, but all of a sudden, Republicans have the advantage here. And they were asked about this, and AOC, well, she just thinks somehow the Republicans are radicalizing young, not men, but young boys.
And they are able to radicalize and target and exploit a generation of young boys, in particular, away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires the domination of others who are poorer, browner, darker, or a different gender than them. And that is why they are resonating online, because they are appealing to the most basest and worst parts of human nature to divide.
Yeah, and Bernie actually ended up chiming in and saying, oh, it's because of the capitalists, it's because of the algorithms, as if Facebook, as if Silicon Valley is all about republicanism and all about conservatives and all about the Constitution. We all know that when the Democrats were in power, we all know that Silicon Valley, they donate millions and billions of dollars to the Democrat Party. It's not as if this is an even playing field. We know it's been conservatives who have been shadow banned, who have their comments removed from YouTube. And so for them to claim and pretend it's, this some right-wing conspiracy happening thanks to algorithms and tech companies, it's just an absolute joke. And it was really interesting to me that she referred to them not as young men, but young boys. I guarantee if she were referring to Democrat voters, she would call them young men, not young boys. I believe she meant that as an insult. And I'm old enough to remember that if you ever referred to someone who, had darker skin as a boy, you would be called a racist, right? Get over here, boy. No, it was the Democrats who, they tried to police our language, and they said that using that sort of terminology was racist. And here you have her talking about young boys being radicalized. No, it's not young men being exposed to the truth, or young men being shown other ideas and points of views and being tolerant of, being able to be exposed to all sides of the story and be able to draw their own conclusions. No, that's not what's happening. It's the fact that they're being radicalized. Very scary. Well, Mike Johnson did have a brilliant response to all of this, but before we get to his response, I would like to acknowledge the members of today's Governor's Club: Helga Shabalaba Ding Dong, Oscar Espinoza, MDT New, William Kaufman, and Jeremy 2001 Happy. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I'm so glad that you're here and am glad that you enjoy. I thought Mike Johnson had a really brilliant rebuttal.
I didn't see it. Many of you saw it. CNN hosts the first socialist town hall where Bernie Sanders and AOC said the quiet parts out loud. They don't know what they want to end the shutdown. They couldn't provide a single viable solution for the mess that they themselves have gleefully created. And by the way, those are the real leaders of the Democrat Party. We all know it. AOC and Bernie. Good luck with that. And amid all that, Chuck Schumer is actually bragging that every day gets better for his party. As you know, that is his words, not ours. All this would be laughable if it didn't come at the cost of American families.
100% true. Like I said, they are playing political games, and it really is disturbing and disgusting. But unfortunately, there's going to be a large slice of the country that falls for this, that gets riled up by this. They think more with their emotions than the logic behind what's going on here. But if you actually take a look at the facts and run through all the different scenarios and the policy shenanigans, it's very clear what the Democrats are doing here. Now, I am obviously not in my apartment. I am lucky enough to be filming for the next week. So production flew me out yesterday, and I'll be all over the place for the next few days filming. The fur babies are being taken care of. They are in the best hands, probably better hands than mine, so they are having a great vacation, staycation. They're doing good. Also, in regards to Rachmaninoff's third concerto, I have a little bit to share for y'all before we wrap up today's video. So this section happens a little bit after that big opening. There's an orchestral interlude, and then the piano comes in with a scherzo, and that's really cool. But then after that, we have this really beautiful lyrical section, and it's one of the few moments in the third concerto where you do have a very clear melody. Not only is the concerto very difficult to play and very challenging even for, the most seasoned professional pianists, but it's also difficult to listen to for that reason, right? There's not always a clear motif or a clear melody, and sometimes those motifs are rhythmic motifs, and if you're not sure what to listen to, it becomes overwhelming. And so that's why I figured, hey, maybe I'll explain part of this next section. Just to be clear, this is not a whole new piece. This is maybe a third into the third movement of this concerto, and explain sort of what to listen for, what's happening, and then play it for y'all. So what part of the genius of Rachmaninoff is his use of harmonies. So a harmony is like the cloud that supports a melody, twinkle twinkle. We can all subconsciously hear the melody in the back of our heads, right? Really nice. What's happening here though is his use of harmony are just these massive sounds terrible, right? But what happens is he decides to strum it all along one note at a time after another, and it's almost like this harp feeling. Now, if you're just playing all those notes in rapid succession, you're still not going to get a clear sense of melody because he's messing around with the scale. You see all these accidentals. So what you'll notice is at the very top of the right hand, he introduces this really lovely melody, which is really simple. He adds another layer of harmony there. So there's always two notes happening in the right hand, in addition to the strumming that's happening underneath. And what's happening is because that melody is so simple, when it's on top of everything else, your ear's gonna pick up on, oh, here's the harmony that's happening. Now in the left hand, you'll notice the first note in every grouping here has two stems, one stem pointing down, one stem pointing up. And what that's indicating is that note is not only part of that giant harp-like strum, but it's also a walking bass line. Obviously the piano is out of tune, so forgive this, but it'll sound weird, but hopefully still sound okay even though it's out of tune. So really three easy things to listen for there. Number one, the melody on top. Number two, that strumming sensation. And number three, this walking bass line, which not only keeps the beat, but gives more context into the harmonic structure that's going on. So this happens for a few more lines. And then we have the più vivo, which is a massive speed up, and it seems to come out of nowhere, and everyone's like, what am I supposed to listen to here? And it's actually indicated by this left-hand rhythm. Bum bum bum, bum bum bum, bum bum bum. And that's actually a rhythm that happens earlier in the piece. So there's no melody here that appears ever again in the entire piece, but you get a bum bum bum, bum bum bum, driving rhythm. We get to this crazy devilish turnaround with a whole bunch of inner notes. And so what you're listening for when you see this is really this chromatic scale. Again, just those inner notes going on. And if you can really pick it out, the left hand actually has a harmony there. We have a variation of that happens again in the following line. And then on the top of the next page, so this, you'll notice that there are actually 4 lines here. The top 2 are what I'm playing, and this is throughout the entire movement. The bottom 2 is actually what the orchestra would be playing. And because the orchestra just has this tied long note, I've decided as part of my interpretation is for this measure right here, is to actually do a pretty rapid tempo change. And then it'll, slow down again as we have the diminuendo in the following line. The orchestra comes back in, rehearsal 52, and then it's off to the races for the rest of the piece. So with all of that being said, like I said, I wanted to explain some of that because I know not everyone has a classical background, and some people in one of my previous videos where I shared a preview, they were saying, whoa, this is great, I can tell it sounds awesome, but it's just over my head. So I figured by explaining that, and then playing it, hopefully you'll have a sense of what to listen to, not just in terms of the piece, but maybe some of the choices that I'm making. Hope you enjoy it and hope I don't mess up. It'll just one take, we'll see.